Hi, good morning everyone. Right. So today, in fact, let us discuss about the confined space entry. We have been discussing about various hazard assets. We also discussed about the normal safety hazards in the industrial scenario and about the health hazards. Confined space is one of the important thing as far as the safety hazards are concerned. And this one has been categorized under high hazardous category. You know pretty well, last time we were discussing about different categories of hazards. One is the low hazard, medium hazard and high hazard. And this one comes under high hazard category because of the fatalities are very high here. And one of the important analysis states that many of the fatality happens only for the people those who are in the rescue area, correct? So that means out of panic they might try to get inside, so that shouldn't happen. So we need to be very careful here. Just see here. Yeah, so these are the type of areas. You can see tanks or boilers or silos or manholes. These are all coming at a confined space mainly. That means the entry and exit could be a problem. And you can also see the sewers, the septic tank or pipes or cable galleries or trenches. Even excavated surface. For example, with the construction area, when you're doing an excavation, you know up to how many meters it could be taken as confined space. So we need to be all the more careful when you are getting inside the pit or any other areas. And ducting, for example, when you are air conditioning, servicing or maintenance, when you are going inside the ducting, that is also termed as confined space. And this one, there are two different protocols, two different rules are there in the confined space. One is called the entrant, the other one is called attendant. Now, entrant is supposed to go inside the confined space, and the attendant responsibility is to ensure that he is safe. In case of any problem to the entrant, he must be in a position to rescue him. That's very important. He is not supposed to go inside. There is always psychologically we always think there is a misconception that attendant should also go inside. Attendant is not supposed to go inside. He must be waiting outside, and in case if any problem to the entrant, his ultimate responsibility is to ensure that the entrant is saved. So that is one important thing. And that is why in many of the areas worldwide, attendant must have the knowledge of understanding and understanding the entire nuances of English capacity. He must have the capability and competence. And the person who is not able to read English and write English, then probably he may be fit for confined space entrant. He will not be given the task of this one, attendant, because as an attendant you need to check out the your oxygen supply, like a level of oxygen, is there any contaminants there, and how many people are inside, the logging and other thing, logbook, everything should be maintained. So for that you need to have a basic understanding of language. And one more important thing is the AGT. The AGT is nothing but the authorized gas tester. So he is supposed to check up the entire contaminants level and any toxic gas is available. So those are the things he is going to check up. And purging. Purging is a very mandatory important thing which is supposed to be done before entry into the confined space. Normally the contaminants will be there. How will you remove the contaminants? It's a process of dilution. That means what you are trying to do is you will have to remove the entire entire contaminants by means of diluting with some other gas. What is the gas that could be used? The best gas is N2. The pure N2 nitrogen can be used because it will not react with any other gas. It's an inert gas. And in some areas they will also be using a pure air, also can be used. And precautions are taken. Hope you are able to follow my presentation. In case of any clarification, please ask me either in the Facebook secret group or in the feedback down. So it will be clarified immediately either by me or by my community. So just take care of the thing. And these are the basic understanding: the boiler, degreaser, furnace, and process vessel. Mainly in the petroleum process vessel, when they are doing any distillation process. So as you are going there inside, then that could also be termed as a confined space. You need to understand one thing: confined space does not mean that the entire area should be closed totally and the sunlight should never enter. It is not like that. Sunlight can be there, and there could be adequate lighting also can be there. But at the same time, you may not be able to do your job in a very comfortable manner. It may not be suitable for a continuous stay. That's the understanding. Imagine in the process plant when you are doing a maintenance. Maintenance is supposed to be maintenance is supposed to be one of the important things where the hazards are very high. In fact, the recent styrene leak in Vizag, LG Polymers, it happened because of due to the maintenance part. So at that point of time, you may have to crawl down, you may have to go underneath the machinery closer to the ground. So that is also termed as confined space. And you know the sewage treatment, like water manhole, people getting in the manhole and cleaning, scavenging. So these are all coming under confined space complete. And limited openings for entry and exit. and unfavorable natural ventilation. Natural ventilation may not be able to enter properly. So that is important thing. And how about the entry? What could be the maximum diameter? When it is smaller than 18 inches, when it is smaller than 1.5 feet, then that could be termed as confined space. And difficult to enter, the SCB is very, very important. SCB is nothing but the personal protective that we'll discuss later towards the end of the session, and understand the thing. And confined space definition, let us understand very clearly, is large enough that an employee can enter and perform assigned work. By chance, if you are not able to enter inside, then there is no question of confined space entry. Now here, it should be large enough, at least 18 inches, to enter, number one, has limited or restricted means of entry and exit. That is second one. And the third category parameter is, it's not designed for continuous employee occupancy. So when any entry and exit, when it is falling under these three categories, that could be termed as confined space, and all the control measures in a sequential manner should be taken care without any tolerance. So understand that. And this talks about the hazardous atmosphere. What are the hazardous atmosphere you will have? There can be definitely fatality and impairment of ability, because by chance if there is a toxic gas, it reacts with your hemoglobin complete. Pretty well in the blood we have the hemoglobin and oxygen. Hemoglobin is a fantastic guy, but only thing, the bad property is it has got a greater affinity towards oxygen other than any other chemical. Imagine if carbon monoxide is a contaminant, it reacts with carbon monoxide and creates a chemical component, carboxyhemoglobin. If there is a H2S, hydrogen sulfide, it reacts with H2S and forms a chemical called sulfoxyhemoglobin. So the reaction is so rapid that the person who is working, he will never be able to do any right thing. He will not be able to come out. So that is where we have to be careful. And engulfment is suddenly some chemical or flowing solid or semi-solid content which comes and swamps you totally. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So these are the process we need to understand. These are the hazards we need to understand. And at any point of time, not even 1% tolerance should be permitted. You can understand here, whenever there is an entry, you need to be wearing proper coverall, everything, and the safety shoes and the helmet. These are the primary requirement. Apart from the secondary protection, the final protection is the SCBA or the tripod or the barricade should be there, and there is to be a notice. The signage should be kept very clearly. The permit work is going on, and within the barricade area, if anybody is coming inside, I am not talking about the entry of the confined space. I am talking only within the barricade. If within the barricade area, if somebody is coming inside without wearing the self-contained breathing apparatus, that is being termed as dangerous occurrence. That means it is more than the near miss. Near miss, there is no hazard which is a lighter intensity. But as far the dangerous occurrence is concerned, it is a higher intensity which can result in death and fatality. So if I am talking about anybody who is coming inside the barricade area without wearing the proper SCBA. So just understand the seriousness here. And it is not about the respirator. I am not talking about the respirator, I am talking about the SCBA that should be worn. And as for the entry is concerned, probably you can easily understand there are two different ways of entry. One is horizontal entry and the other one is a vertical entry. In case of horizontal entry, you can the person can go inside and come out, not a problem. Probably you may have to have bend himself and you can enter. And the vertical entry, you need to have a tripod with a winch arrangement, and there has to be a rescue arrangement on the top, and he must be wearing the SCBA, he has to go down, and somebody else has to be available on the top to pull him out. And what is the amount of oxygen we require for survival? It is 19.5%. When the level of oxygen goes down below 19.5%, it is called oxygen depletion. That means the level of oxygen comes down. When it is going beyond 23.5%, it is called oxygen enrichment. Either this side or that side, both are equally dangerous. When it is going below 19.5%, it can cause death. When it is going above 23.5%, then also it can cause death. So what is the survival level? The optimal level is between 19.5 and 23.5. And as for the confined space is concerned, there is one thing called IDLH, immediately dangerous to life and health. So what is that level? It is nothing but 17.5. 19.5 is the adequate thing. Up to 17.5% probably you can tolerate. After 17.5, the entire concentration is coming under immediately dangerous to life and health. So you have to keep on monitoring in the gas detector. By chance the oxygen level comes down below 19.5, you have to be cautious. When it comes down 17.5, you have to come out immediately. There is no chance. Otherwise, you are playing with your life. So let us not do that. And what are the combustibles? The most hazardous chemicals are hydrocarbon. There are methane, hydrogen, acetylene, propane, butane, isobutane, LPG. All these are your combustibles wherein you have to be careful while dealing with all these things. And there could be some toxic materials that we have discussed, and then electricity could be there, mechanical hazards can be there. Imagine you are doing some welding work inside the confined space. Now at that point of time, what is happening is, as you are doing the welding, the fire spark that consumes oxygen. So the available oxygen is already consumed by means of this one, and at the same time you are also in the confined space, your oxygen level keeps on coming down. That means you are playing with your life. So by chance the oxygen level comes down beyond 19.5%, you have to be cautious and you have to ensure that you are coming out. And then only after dilution, only after ventilation with the blower and other thing, then probably you can enter. Only after checking whether the oxygen level is sufficient as per the gas detection monitor. Okay. So this is one simple example how the oxygen is taken in the blood cells and how the CO2 we leave. Now human body requires oxygen to carry out cellular metabolism. Without this one you can't do anything. You will never be able to do anything. And how many minutes we can survive without oxygen? Imagine your entire mouth and this one is closed. How many minutes we can survive? Maximum just 4 minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all. Just 4 minutes we can survive. Not beyond 4 minutes. So within 4 minutes you don't require any first aid. You will be having life, not a problem. Life will be there. Beyond 4 minutes, within 5 to 8 minutes, if I am right. So 5 to 8 minutes, let us take. So now between 5 to 8 minutes, somebody is able to perform CPR. Then probably there is always a chance of survival. Somebody should be ready to perform CPR. He must be knowing about the first aid, resuscitation process. Then there is a chance of survival. If not, there is no chance. You will have to die. That's all. So we need to be careful. And dangerous combinations. The presence of all the three confined space characteristics can complicate the situation. So that we need to understand, especially when the project stage, when the like a tunnels working is going on, construction sites are there. So there, as you're doing the process, as you're doing the projects, there will be a lot of hard work will be going on parallelly, and at the same time the confined space entry will also be there. So we need to be careful, because when there is a prevailing hazards level is more than 1, you need to be almost careful, definitely, correct? And this can again cause, what are the problems here? Oxygen deficient atmosphere is also a problem. Oxygen enriched atmosphere is a problem, and it can create a flammable atmosphere. Flammable atmosphere in sense, there could be some vaporization. If I say, imagine there is a petroleum, some petroleum container is open. Now the vaporization happens. Now at that point of time, if you are giving some source of ignition, what will happen? The vapor will blast like anything. It is not the petrol that captures fire, it's a petroleum vapor that catches fire. And similarly the toxic atmosphere, carbon monoxide will be there. So toxic atmosphere can be created. And temperature extremes, that could be on both sides. It could be hot or cold, and engulfment. And apart from this, there are various health hazards. Noise will be there, and wet surfaces, falling objects, all these things should be taken care. And confined space, like how the toxic atmosphere could be created, just understand this logic here. The product stored, there could be some gases, some materials and other thing. And work performed in the confined space. What are the work? And areas adjacent to the confined space that we have to take care. And this one basic understanding of what about the part per million? How many ppm what is the level of ppm is permitted? So here, as far as hydrogen sulfide is concerned, 10 ppm is maximum permitted level, 8 hours. By chance when it is going beyond that, ultimately what will happen at some point of time, when it is going beyond this level, the central nervous system, that means the nerves that carries the smell of this H2S will become deafened. So you will not be able to do anything. So you wouldn't be able to understand the seriousness. In carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas, as good as this one. So what will happen? You will not be able to do anything. Like here the IDLH, the personal permissible exposure level is 50 ppm for 8 hours. And as it increases, automatically there can be some slight headache and discomfort and confusion, nausea and other thing will happen, and that's all. Then after that the guy will die. So, and critical factor, and that is why in all this confined space entry nowadays, like it is mandatory that you should also have the AED. AED is nothing but the automated external defibrillator. Somebody should be able to perform CPR as you are giving the compression. If you have this AED also, probably because the heart is working out of electrical impulse. So when the heart does not work, if you are able to give some electrical shock to a predetermined joules level, there is always a chance that the heart will again start, restarting. The defibrillation is nothing but fibrillation is always negative. That means the cells are you will have a jittering effect. That means there is always a problem with the fibrillation, and the counter-attacking measure is defibrillation. That's going to be done by AED. So when you're doing with AED, the person should be there for CPR, and AED is also going to supplement the entire function. Correct? And we talk about the dust. Dust is something we are not talking about the normal dust. We are talking about the respirable dust where the micron particles are lesser than 7 micron. So when it is going below 7 micron, ultimately it can go even to your internal organs up to lungs. So we need to be careful here. And then toxic atmosphere, the product stored in confined space. This can create a problem, and that we have to take care. Temperature, okay, that we have discussed. Engulfment hazards we have discussed. Engulfment is something that loose granular materials crusting and bridging below worker, okay. And the noise, these are the health hazards we were discussing. The noise should be taken care, and the wet surface should be taken care. Falling objects, because when you are doing in the construction site or some process area, something might fall. In offshore, there is always a drop objects is one of the major hazards. So that also should be taken care. And how will you go? What is the control measure? What is the mitigation plan for this? How we are going to control the thing? Let us discuss about the reducing risk of hazards. So you will have to highlight the signage. Signage is very, very important. It should be easily understood, and it should be, as far as possible, the text should be minimized. It should be pictorial. So language will not be a barrier in terms of understanding. And then barrier should be there. Barriers are barricades. And return space entry program. That means like a permit to work system, the documentation that should be clear. And air monitoring with the AGT. And ventilate the area. And as far as try to adapt the hierarchy of risk control. Elimination, reduction, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, and last but not the least, the PPE usage. It shouldn't be like this, right? Okay. You can see here in the slide the permit required. As you want to enter, before entry you will have to have a permit. Correct? Without permit you are not supposed to go inside. And the entrant will go through the tripod in the vertical entry, and then the outside your standby person will be there, who is nothing but who is called as your, you know what is the name of the standby person? Is attendant, right? One is entrant, other one is attendant. Confined space के काम करने से पहले क्या क्या कंट्रोल मेजर होना चाहिए? Permit work, everything is there. And entrant का लाइफ कौन सा हाथ में है? ऊपर वाले का हाथ में, right? So we need to be careful, and to assure that the response has been entrant responsibilities that you have to take care here. Emergency, your life is very important. As you are going inside the confined space, your life is more important than anybody else. So you must have the basic understanding and analysis. So the moment you have something is unsafe, just exit. You must make an exit. There is no second thought on that. And to follow all safety regulations, correct? And attendant is about to go inside. The attendant is already waiting outside. And to monitor entrance during the job and during the entry, attendant may not abandon his post for any reason. He is not supposed to go outside. He is not supposed to leave the place. Even if any other emergency happens, he is not supposed to leave other place. He can only caution the people. Correct? That's why the emergency arrangement should be ready outside, and he can summon the emergency services. He can immediately call the emergency services, but he is not supposed to go inside. And records, everything should be there. The log books and other thing, everything should be kept intact without any deviations. And the supervisor's responsibility. He has to ensure that adequate protection is provided, and energy control mechanism, lockout tagout should be used, and attendance authority, that should be taken care. And how many people have gone inside, how many people have come out, how many people entered, how many people exited, everything should be maintained properly. That's the responsibility of the supervisor. And what are the two different options for entering confined space? One is permit required, and the other one is non-permit. Non-permit required entry will be a very, very non-hazardous thing. It might be a confined space, but no hazards will be there, and probably the limited time of entry. So that could be possible. So here, wherever the permit is not required, probably you can isolate the space, ventilate the space, evaluate the space, enter the space. Isolate, ventilate, evaluate, enter. Isolate in the sense, put the barricade, so nobody should be coming nearby, and then ventilate. Start ventilating the thing by means of dilution or any other blower, and then evaluate. Check the thing. Evaluation is something that, is there any other contaminants available, what about the gas level, everything. Then probably once you are clear, once you are rest assured, then probably the entry can happen. So how the isolation can be done? Closing the valves. The energy control mechanism that should be taken care of, the stored energy should not be there. So closing the valves, empty the space, lockout, tagout, that should be taken care. And then probably you can also clean the residue. Correct? And the next one is the ventilation. Ventilation is something like using the blower or any other mechanism wherein the contaminants are diluted. It's nothing but ventilation, that's all. Ventilation air supply must be from the fresh air. It should not be contaminate with any other available material here inside. Correct. And you can see here there are different type of blowers. In the mines or cable galleries or any other material where process industry where the petroleum products are stored, you may have to clean that area. So at that point of time, the SOP says very clearly, after understanding the hazards, immediately you will have to prepare the documentation and select the right people and then blow the entire area with this one, nitrogen, pure N2. Then what will happen? The concentration of contaminants will come down, and then check the oxygen level and check the CO level and H2S. Then if you are safe, then you can go inside. And this gas detection monitor, it's a continual process. It is not at the point of entry and point of exit. It is not like that. It's a continual process wherein during the process of work, as the process is going on, you need to keep on checking this one. When the level comes below this one, that will also alert you. So be careful. Let us not take anything for granted. Because as I was telling you, the confined space is categorized under high hazardous category, and some areas it is being categorized as special hazard category. So we have to be careful. And evaluation, how you are going to do? Determine the space. You will understand. And the atmospheric testing once you are doing, you will be able to understand where all the hazards, and then you can take up the control accordingly. Correct? Okay. And in non-permit conditions change during the job, space shall be immediately evacuated and reclassified. By chance, if as you are doing the non-permit, and if you feel that the hazards are slightly increasing, probably it has to be categorized under permit required. From the non-permit, it migrates to the permit required thing, and whatever the SOP says, what are the standard procedures given you, and you have to follow the entire thing without any tolerance. And isolate, ventilate, complete, test the atmosphere, and then enter the space. Correct? Okay, these are the things. And this we already seen. Just once again for reinforcement, because it should be manifested. And at any point of time, just understand it should be barricaded area, and the signage that should be given very clear, and no one should enter that area. And if somebody has to enter the confined space this within the barricade, he must be wearing the SCBA. So this is one summary of entire thing in a hierarchical manner. Specific permit, number one, and purpose and date of entry. The purpose is made very clear, and without a proper purpose, there is no point in going inside. And duration of authorization, who has authorized, and how many entrants can go inside, and how many authorized attendants are available. Then what about the actual hazards, the control and isolation methods, acceptable entry conditions. So emergency services, what about the rescue service, what about the communication procedure? Can I use mobile inside the confined space? You're not supposed to. Then how will you communicate? Can you use a walkie-talkie? If possible. But if not possible, then what is the best communication method? You will not be able to shout, because as the person is losing his consciousness, about to lose his consciousness, he will not be able to communicate by shouting. So at that point of time, the moment you have a rescue harness you are wearing, and you do also have a lifeline, and if you start shaking the lifeline, correct? If you have a continual shaking, that means it's an understanding that you are in an emergency, and the attendant's job is to pull you out. Right? So as far as possible, there is a very clear way of communication. That means you must be able to see the attendant. If that is a straight line of communication, it's fantastic. If it is not possible, there is always a L bend and U-turn. Everything is there within the cable gallery or the this one, your area confined space. You will not be able to contact the confined attendant, but as far as possible, try to have a clear line of contact. And one basic understanding what I need to say is, you know pretty well there are various permits out there. Hot work is there, cold work is there, work at height permit, and confined space entry, everything. Which one comes on the top priority? Imagine you have to enter the confined space, and you have to do the welding inside. Now you need to carry two different permits. But which one must come on the top? The first priority should be given to confined space entry because of life problem, and the next permit, you can secondary permit will be for this one. It can also be called as ancillary permit. Imagine you are working on the top, you need to take the permit for work at height. At the same time, you may be doing some cold work permit. But which one is predominantly important? So the main permit will be given for work at height, and the other one can be taken as ancillary permit, correct? Or attachments. So you need to understand where exactly the priority should be given. The priority should not be given to the second or third level area. It should be given for the first one, top one. And permit work must be completed before any confined space entry. Safe working practices are all used as reasonably practicable, as far as reasonably practicable. That should be taken care. And permit will be for the limited duration, and it will not be valid for more than 12 hours. Normally, the permit work documentation was implemented. It loses its sanctity beyond sunset. After demise, so after this one, like your sunset, it loses its sanctity. But ultimately, after that, what had happened, because of continual work, 24/7 we have been working, so there is no point in sunset and sunrise. We always do the renewal. So each and every shift, before the shift starts, the supervisor has to revalidate the permit. Otherwise, 12 hours we can take it. And permits must be withdrawn and reissued after a proper assessment of the situation. That's called the revalidation. So that we need to understand. And preparation of permit space. Notify all the affected department, post signs, and blind or disconnect and cap all those things. Empty the space, verify breathing. Okay, this should be taken care. Then atmospheric testing, you need to take up the oxygen level 19.5. This we have discussed already. And safe procedures. Authorized entrants can enter the safe premise only if the assigned entrant has to know what equipment. Correct? Okay. So training and duties of the confined space team. Here you can see the permit should be filled properly and ensure they stay throughout the work. Unauthorized people should not be there, and cancel the permit in case if the work is completed. And this is just a color category of the air quality. The good air will be denoted like this, and the poor air or the deadly air. So we need to be taking all the control measures according to the gas level. Because here the problem is, since it affects your nervous system, CNS, you will never be able to do anything. The other people may think, okay, you would have done like this, you could have done like this, but ultimately, since your CNS is going to be in problem, the action, whatever you are taking, you might think, but you may not be able to implement. So different gases can be found at different levels. So, right? Okay. Isolation, locking and tagging out electrical sources, blanking and belading, and pneumatic and hydraulic lines, everything that you can take it. And let us understand the personal protective equipment. There are two things. One is the normal PPE and the other one is the respiratory protective equipment, RPE. RPE also there are different types. One is about the the canister will be there, and there is a cartridge type will be there. And for confined space, these are not supposed to be used. You will have to go only for the SCBA. It is always better. But according to the type and nature of risk, probably you can also use the respirators based on the suggestions and recommendation by your team. Imagine if you are wearing a respirator and the continual supply, the compressor will be outside, and you will get a continual supply of air, oxygen. So then you can definitely go in with this one. Correct? And this is a standalone one, like a self-contained breathing apparatus. This will have the breathable air for about 45 minutes max and 30 minutes minimum, and you can go with this one. The understanding or advantage and disadvantage between the SCBA and the supplied air breathing apparatuses: in the supplied air, you will get a continual supply of oxygen because the compressor is always running, so you don't have to worry about the loss of the air. And here SCBA, you have got air only for 45 minutes, so that is a disadvantage here. As for the advantage is concerned, because of the hose which is going to carry the oxygen air, there could be some problem in the hose. If any kinks are there, probably the supply will be affected. So here you don't have to worry about this one because it's a standalone one. Okay, and the respirator will not supply air. Respirator will not supply air, it only purifies. Basically the misconception many of us we have is a respirator will give you pure oxygen. It will not. Respirator filters oxygen, and the respirator can be used only in an area where oxygen level is up to 19.5%. Correct? Up to a certain percentage you have, but still you are not supposed to use this in an area where oxygen is totally nil. It can be used in an area where oxygen is available but it's contaminated. There it will purify the air. That's understanding. Hope you are able to get my point. So the available air is 21% and the IDLH is 19.5%. That you have to take care. And the standby and rescue arrangements, how you are going to do, that we need to take care. And confined space entry, when opening the entry and exit dangerous space should be considered. IDLH we have discussed already, and the operating procedure that should be taken care. Correct? Okay, I think we have covered everything. I hope, is there any questions, specific questions on this? Line of sight or other continuous two-way communication method shall be established. Line of sight in the sense the entrant must be able to see the attendant. That's important. Because if the line of sight is not available, as far as possible the line of sight is always better. In case if the line of sight is not available, you will have to have another person also in between. So probably you will have to take the assistance from other person also. So, and your gas detection we have discussed earlier. What are the gas? It will give you the indication. It will give you the indication of oxygen level, and then of course CO, and then H2S, and it will also give the LEL. LEL is something that the lower explosive limit of any other contaminants, any other vapor will also be there. So that contaminants concentration should not go beyond 10%. When you are reading something more than 10% of the contaminants in the gas detection monitor, you need to come out. You are not supposed to enter. And how the signals can be given here, I was telling you, like you are going to give a tug. That means you keep on shaking the rope. For one tug it is called OK, and by chance if you keep on doing this 2 tugs and continuous thing, then that means you will have to come out. And we were discussing earlier the personal protective equipment that should be taken care, the respiratory protection and the breathing apparatus. Gas testing to be done before the entry, and only after doing the gas testing you are supposed to go inside. Otherwise you can't. You will never be able to enter the confined space. And safety attendants, people who monitor the confined space and who have knowledge on how to recognize and must be trained in the process. And the training and implementation and understanding the logics and nuances is very, very important than anything, because you are playing with life. So as you are entering the confined space, you need to be very clear. We have come to the last slide of the program. So let us understand the summary. Confined space is one of the important thing. As far as the entry is concerned, a lot of deaths are happening because due to that, for the attendant, the rescuer arrangement who are outside the confined space, they just try to enter the confined space out of panic without proper guard. So they might get into the problem. That should never happen. And then apart from that, the oxygen level should be checked up. What is the amount of oxygen we have in the atmosphere? 21%. Up to what level we can survive? We can survive only up to 19.5%. But of course, up to 17.5% confined space IDLH is available. CS IDLH. Confined space immediately dangerous to life and health is 17.5%. When it goes down below 17.5%, it is ultimate responsibility of the entrant to come out without any time delay, because every second is very, very important. Because the toxic gas, the carbon monoxide or H2S, it reacts with the CNS, and your reactive mechanism will be different totally. You will not be able to do anything. Probably you might think, okay, I will be able to do this, I will be able to pick up something, I will be able to come out. But you wouldn't be able to do anything because the entire system is totally knocked down. And then as far as the responsibility of people are concerned, confined space entrant will be in a position to enter for an area where the diameter is not less than 18, not more than, it is almost not less than 18 inches. And then what is the responsibility of the attendant? He has to ensure that everybody is safe inside, how many people have gone inside, and apart from that, he has to check up any rescue measures and other things should be taken care. And the attendant should never be able to enter inside. He is not supposed to enter the confined space at any point of time, point blank. That's a basic understanding. And then what's the role of AGT, authorized gas tester? He has to ensure that the contaminants levels are kept at within the control. And if by chance something is going on, increasing, then you have to stop the work. If anything is found unsafe, what is the best thing? Solution is come out, stop the work. That's very, very important. And then how will you ventilate the area? You have to understand how the ventilation can be done by means of pure N2. I imagine you, let me give you a small case study here. You have a processing plant. There is some toxic chemical which has to be cleaned. Now the tank is almost empty. Now what are the basic precautionary steps you need to take before entry to the confined space? As we were discussing, first of all, you need to clean that area because the area is already toxic materials are inside. Even though the tank is emptied, materials would have been removed. But what is there inside the vessel? Full of toxic vapor. So first you need to check the entire thing, gas level, everything, and then try to ventilate the area. And then after ventilation, once the entire thing is confirmed, that means there is no toxic gas, oxygen level is also there. Then once everything is checked up, try to check the entry. Is it going to be the horizontal entry or vertical entry? If it is going to be vertical entry, what are the props I have? So then probably you can go with the assistance of confined space attendant and the AGT, everybody. So there has to be a list of SOP that should be there. And the permit to work system is one of the important documentation before entry to the confined space. As we were discussing, the confined space entry is more hazardous. So the primary permit for the confined space entry and the secondary permit will be for the welding or hot work or whatever the thing, whatsoever may be the work you are going to do inside the confined space. Correct? So with all these thoughts, be safe. And as you are gaining an entry in the confined space, check up everything. Without checking anything, never ever enter because you are playing with your life. Just understand that. So thank you. All the best.